unlearn that state of suffering and then to relearn a state of joy. And if we're good at it and we're consistent at it, then nothing in the environment should disrupt that internal order, just like the person who insists on their own suffering. So the book came out of the workshops that I do in terms of these 10 individual steps that I think are some of the important steps for personal change. And the book is really more of a manual. It's more of a journal where you get a little 2 pages or 3 pages of what neuroscience has to say or what we can say about helping you with a little bit of information about then beginning the first step or the second step. So there's a little introduction scientifically, and then there's an exercise for you to do. And then you practice that exercise for a week, you come back, and then you add the second one, then you add the third one. And I call it the Manual for Change because pretty much in the workshops that I've done, I've seen some pretty good changes go on with people.
Okay. Let's just say there's someone watching this program, hopefully, some people watching this program, and they've created a heck of a challenging life for themselves. And they're going, yeah, that's easy enough said than done, but you haven't had this happen and you haven't had that happen and that wouldn't work for me. If you looked into that camera over there, just as we're finishing, our conversation with you, if you looked into that camera and directed some words to them, what would you say to them?
I think people talk themselves out of greatness every single day. I think that we all do that, and those voices that we hear. One of the great moments in my life is when I realized just because I have a thought doesn't necessarily mean it's true. People talk themselves out of greatness every single day, and it's because to change means to think and act greater than the environment, to think and act greater than the circumstances in your life, to think and act greater than how you feel, to pull the mind out of the body and put it back in the brain, and that is an act of will. What happens when most people when they're uncomfortable in their life that they want to change, they look for evidence in their world, and when they can't find the evidence in their world for change, they rush back to the familiar, and they excuse themselves for not changing because of something that's happened to them in their past. And because we can excuse ourselves for something that has happened to us in our past, we're giving up the divine right that we can change. So if I said, listen, I can't change because I was abused by my parents or I had this thing happen to me, and then I lived as if, listen, you don't understand, the reason I'm this way is because this event. What I'm really saying is this emotion I've become so attached to that I'm using this emotion as a reason to not change. Because if they went out and had new experiences and created a new life, then that experience no longer would hold any weight, because now the new memories replace the old memories. And it's not an easy process. Change is an uncomfortable process. No one likes to hear that. But when you're getting ready to change, you're breaking all of your emotional agreements with everything and everyone in your life. And you're no longer thinking and acting in predictable ways. And of course, that's taking a moving locomotive and putting on the brakes, and there's a loud screech that goes on with it. And then you have to begin to start that locomotive up again, and overcoming that inertia is where we then begin to silently believe in ourselves. You will never find evidence in your world in change when you begin. You will always have to think greater than your environment, and you'll have to do that enough times until the environment reflects back to you exactly how you're thinking.
Once again, it could be a show, a conversation of hours with you. Hopefully you'll come back on again.
Let's hope.
And also, Joe, I would just love to do a little plug for Julianne's store.
Sure, I'd love to do one too.
Okay, you do the plug.
Well, I've had the great opportunity to be a part of Nibbana, and the girls, Julie and Annie, are a great living demonstration of their message. And when you have an opportunity to work with people like that, they're committed to flow. And flow is when the mind and body and the heart are all working together. Now, their message is really to bring new ideas to Australia, to take spiritual concepts and science and plug it into the mainstream, so that not so much that people have the edge in the world, but they live a happier life. And And so I've been with them for 2 weeks, and their message is clear, their actions are aligned with their message, and I think that anybody who wants to investigate further, Nibbana is a great place for them to begin, to start. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the program.
Yeah.
And once again, you know, if you get a chance to see any of Joe's workshops, absolutely go. It's an amazing experience and so simple on one level. You know, the website, www.conversationswithrobyn.com. If you go into guests and topics, you'll see a link to Joe's website. You'll also see a link to Nibbana, so you can find out who else they're bringing out and when Joe's going to be with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the meantime, take care.